Let's say China.
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 There are no storm movers, and you can actually see Russia from land here in Alaska.
You go over to China.
I did not have sexual relations with that woman.
Trump statement, tweeting out insults to Angela Merkel. What's he doing?
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome your host.
Yes. Hello, and welcome. I am James Andrews, and you are listening to So This Happened, the only news you need if you are really confused about the memo that was released today, have absolutely no idea what it's talking about or what the possible ramifications could be. It's Friday, the 2nd of February, 2018, and today is a difficult day for me because it's one of those days where something so massive happens, like this Republican memo being released, that it makes it very difficult for me, and I don't like to talk about one thing for the entire time because A, I get bored, B, you would get bored, and C, we're going to have to try and figure this memo thing out together because it's actually really, really complicated and complex, and it has many, many layers. So first,
is it an early spring or just more snow?
that's right, today is Groundhog Day, where the famous groundhog in Pennsylvania will tell us if we have more winter. If he sees his shadow, we have more winter.
Guys, are we ready? Stay here. We got a winter or we got a spring? Stay here. Huh? Shivering. Yeah, shivering. Okay, we got it. I see my royal shadow. 6 more weeks of winter to go.
Ah well, there you are. You heard it directly from the cute little furry man himself. 6 more weeks of winter. So, well, that's unfortunate. Today in France, it has been announced that there is a killer whale there that can mimic human sounds and words. And this is truly awesome. I love this guy. There's a video of the whale making some human noises, and it's so good. It can do a fart noise. Honestly, I'm telling you, it can do a fart noise. Now, I realise that maybe being able to do a fart noise is not a massive sign of intelligence, because when I do one, Mrs. Andrews always says, "Oh, grow up, James. You're so childish." And I say, no, Mrs. Andrews, I'm childlike. There's a difference. There is a slight difference. Anyway, here's the killer whale. She's awesome. She's called Amy. So you're going to hear her farting first, and it's not a bottom fart. It's a mouth fart. It's fantastic. So here's Amy. I love it. I love it. I think it's so good. Now she can also say she can count. So here she goes.
2, 3.
And you can say goodbye.
Amy.
Isn't that great? She counted 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, the last one was a bit of a fart noise, wasn't it? But it was still quite cool. And then she said goodbye. Bye-bye. And then she said her name, Amy. Well, that was quite good, actually, wasn't it? I'm like, look at me, I'm a killer whale. This is great. Anyway, I love that. I think she's beautiful. You should watch the video. It's really cute. Anyway, now, it's time to talk about this bloody memo. And, well, let me try and explain very briefly what it is about. Okay, so, in a nutshell, this is a memo that was written by the Republicans, and it was accusing the FBI and the Justice Department of abusing their power to spy on the Donald Trump campaign in 2016. It goes on to say that the FBI used unsubstantiated and democratically funded information to obtain a warrant, a FISA warrant, which is so they can surveil on a US citizen in the US, on Donald Trump's aide, Carter Page. Now, what I think is important to remember is that recently Donald Trump, when asked about Carter Page, said, he was a nobody. No, he didn't have anything to do with the campaign. He was a nobody. Well, now, however, when it's convenient, Carter Page, he was my number one aide and the FBI spied on him. Those bastards. And then it also talks a lot about the Steele dossier. Now, this is not a piece of metal with words on. No. This was a dossier written by a British intelligence agent whose name was Christopher Steele, hence the Steele dossier. In case you were confused, because I kept talking on the news, the Steele dossier, and I've got pictures in my head. It's a big slab of steel with words on it, but that's not it. Steele. He was like James Bond, but not quite as cool, right? And what they're saying is that the only reason they got a FISA warrant was because of this Steele dossier saying that Carter Page may have been a Russian agent. Now, it is absolutely true that Carter Page was put under surveillance by the FBI. In 2016 is when the surveillance started. What the memo does not mention, which I think is important to remember, is that back in 2014, the FBI actually approached Carter Page and said to him, look, some of these people you're doing business with and talking with, we believe them to be Russian spies, and we believe that they are trying to make you into a foreign agent to spy on us. So please, be careful. And the memo doesn't mention that at all. All it's saying is that no, the only reason he got a FISA warrant so that the FBI could spy on him was because of this British fella writing a report. Now, the Democrats are understandably very upset about this memo being declassified by President Trump and released, because there is another memo written by the Democrats. And their memo has not been declassified, and they are saying, and I think probably quite rightly so, look, if you're going to release one side of the story, you kind of have to release the other side of the story too, because right now, all we've got is this memo written by Republicans, and they're saying what they want to say, and we have our own memo, and it says different things. In fact, it contradicts some of the things in that memo. And you know what? Here's a drinking game. Every time I say memo, have a drink. By 12 minutes in, you are going to be on the floor. Memo. How was that one? And of course, this memo, sorry, I'm picturing you taking another drink, but this memo also mentions a few other people. Rod Rosenstein, the Deputy Attorney General, is mentioned in this as also being one of those people who abused his power. Democrats are calling for the release of the official transcript of the meeting that took place with Devin Nunes, Carter Page, and the whole Security Council to say, look, this is exactly what was said, and the Republican memo, sorry, drinks again, the Republican memo is just not telling all the truth. It's very, very misleading. And you'll remember at the beginning of the week, the FBI and the Justice Department pleaded with Donald Trump not to release the memo because they said, look, it's not the full story. And in fact, what it's going to do is confuse people and anger people. And by releasing something that is classified, you are giving to everybody, the Russians included, the way we work on our intelligence and our sources and our methods. And that you cannot do. There is a reason they are secret. So other governments, friendly or unfriendly, don't know how we do things. And you get the feeling, sort of by the timing of this release, that Donald Trump is really just trying to discredit the FBI. So whatever is found in the Russian investigation will immediately be suspect. And people will say, yeah, but wait a second, don't you remember that memo? Today, when Donald Trump spoke about it, he further reiterated this point when he said this.
I think it's terrible. You want to know the truth? I think it's a disgrace. What's going on in this country, I think it's a disgrace. The memo was sent to Congress. It was declassified. Congress will do whatever they're going to do. But I think it's a disgrace what's happening in our country. And when you look at that, and you see that, and so many other things, what's going on, a lot of people should be ashamed of themselves, and much worse than that. So I sent it over to Congress. They will do what they're going to do. Whatever they do is fine. It was declassified. And let's see what happens. But a lot of people should be ashamed.
So there he is, judge, jury, and apparently executioner. There has been a lot of speculation that Donald Trump is going to use this to fire Rod Rosenstein. And with that in mind, Rod Rosenstein is the person that Donald Trump would have to go to if he wanted to fire Robert Mueller. So you see how this is all working. It's sort of, well, the memo comes out, which, by the way, Donald Trump had not read until yesterday, apparently. So even though he said at the State of the Union, oh, 100% I'm releasing the memo, he had literally no fucking idea what was in it. He just, oh, I'm putting it out there. Yeah, it's great. Good stuff. But you can kind of see where this is going, can't you? The memo comes out, everyone goes, oh my god, look at that, it's terrible, corrupt FBI, blah blah blah, because they're not seeing the second side of the story because it's not been declassified. Donald Trump then says, okay, well, I'm afraid I have no choice but to fire Rod Rosenstein. He was mentioned in the memo, he's corrupt, he's abusing power, oh god. Then I'll appoint somebody else, oh, Don Jr., or maybe Eric. Eric might not be smart enough, but neither's Don Jr., fuck it, both of them will have two. Yes, two. That would be interesting, but anyway. And then he'll say, okay, you can now fire Robert Mueller. The Democrats have already said if he does anything like that, it will be a constitutional crisis and will be clear obstruction of justice. But the truth is, this is such a complicated issue. I'm not a lawyer. I have no idea, really. I mean, this is just information that I've sort of gathered from reading the 4-page memo and sort of putting my head going, well, okay, well, that could be this. I think until we see the Democrats memo, then we get the full story, there's no real way to decide. So is the memo really as shocking and as big a bombshell as Donald Trump was promising? Well, yes and no, really, in my mind. It's not massively explosive. What it is asserting is that the Steele dossier is the main reason, the essential part, that Carter Page was given a FISA warrant. Well, if that's true, then it's a bit, well, yeah, you know, the Steele thing was funded by the Democrats and Hillary Clinton, so yeah, it might be a bit dodgy. But we know from listening to experts and FBI people that a FISA warrant isn't quite so easy to get. You can't just go to a FISA judge and say, hey, this Carter Page bloke, don't like the look of him. Looks a bit fucking dodgy, and he was wearing one of those Russian hats in the winter. So I think clearly, there's something going on there. So can we surveil him, please? Can we just spy on him? It's not quite that easy. There has to be quite a lot more information. The Republicans are saying, no. The only reason the warrant was given was because of this Steele dossier. The Democrats are saying absolute horse shit. There was a lot more to it than that. You know it. I know it. We all know it. So it's a bit complicated. And these are all questions that are going to have to be answered over the next few days, because if the judge was just given the dossier and that was the only evidence he had against Carter Page, would that really be enough to issue a FISA warrant? A lot of people are arguing, no, that isn't enough on its own. Well, the Democrats are saying, well, there was a lot more to it than that. But you're just getting the one side of the story. Again, we come back to that one side of the story, and until the Democrats memo is released, we're not going to have a full picture of this. And ideally, if the transcripts of the meeting are released, then that is solid. I mean, that we are hearing what the people are saying. Until that happens, though, who knows? It's just, people are just going to fucking keep shouting about it, and ashamed. People should be so ashamed. And the real problem I have with all of this, and I suspect a lot of you listening have the same issue, Donald Trump is so full of shit, and I don't know any other way to say it. The man just lies through his teeth all the time. A perfect example was the other day after the State of the Union. You remember I joked sort of the day before it that, oh, he's going to come out and say it was the biggest television event in history, it's spectacular. Well, he did just that. He tweeted out the morning after, thank you all for watching, it was the most watched State of the Union in the history of State of the Unions. The problem was, it wasn't. Not even close. Barack Obama's from the year before had more viewers. Clinton's and George W. Bush's had many, many more viewers. It was in fact just the 7th most watched State of the Union. And if you think about how many State of the Unions there have been and how many more people watch television now than they did, say, when Jimmy Carter or Nixon or Kennedy, not everybody had a television. So being 7th, if you kind of look at all the presidents, that sort of takes him past Reagan. It's not great, is it? I mean, most people then had one television set. Now people have got television sets, above the toilet so they can, watch whatever they're watching when they're doing their business. So there we have it. He just lies all the time, and that's just one very silly example. But it was just a very recent one, so I brought it up. So when Donald Trump is saying things like, people should be so ashamed, you have no idea what's going on behind the scenes, it's disgusting, disgusting, disgusting. Well, the thing is, people look at him and go, yeah, but you're full of shit, mate. So, we can't really take anything you say seriously. It might just all be made up. So, anyway, that's the end of the episode, and I love to end Friday on a happy story, and we just don't have time to do that, but it's Friday, so that in itself is pretty great. There'll be a lot more to talk about with this whole memo thing over the coming days, and hopefully the Democrats' version, their memo, will be released, and we'll be able to compare and contrast the two. But until that happens, we're all sort of just in the dark, and if you want, you can go watch one of the networks and just listen to them talking over and over and over again about the same thing, because right now, that's all anybody can do. So, everybody have an absolutely spectacular weekend, and we will do this again on Monday. And please, don't forget to subscribe and like the podcast on iTunes, Google Play, TuneIn Radio, YouTube, wherever you're listening to me. And if you'd like to write a nice little review, I love to read those. So, everyone have a lovely one, and we'll do this again Monday. Bye!